Hello everyone. This week has certainly kept us all very busy. Many of us are deep in the wrapping season, though not the kind of wrapping involving presents, but instead it's the familiar end of year rush, closing off projects, completing paperwork, and tackling that annual pile of admin that seems to grow on its own. But even so, good progress is being made, and there's a real sense of satisfaction in bringing everything to a nice, neat close. Amid all of the busy moments, we've enjoyed a real seasonal highlight here today at Sight for White, as we've had Steve Love in today, treating us to a fantastic session of music, singing, and perhaps most importantly, plenty of laughs. His energy and warmth really brought the room to life, and it was wonderful to see so many smiles as usual. A real heartfelt thank you to Steve for sharing his talent and brightening our week. We've also continued our festive gatherings, with different groups coming together for Christmas meals and that all-important social time together. These events are always a reminder of how important connection is, especially at this time of year. We've also continued our festive gatherings, with different groups coming together for Christmas meals and that all-important social time. These events are always a reminder of how important connection really is, especially at this time of year. So we're really grateful to everyone who's joined in and helped to make each get-together so enjoyable. As we look towards the new year, we're already planning our programme of activities, excursions and support services for 2026. As we now move into our final week before we close for the Christmas season, we encourage everyone to take care, stay well, and as always, we hope to see many of you before we share our final Merry Christmas message next week.
Here is this week's charity news for the 12th of December 2025. We will be at the Aspire in Ryde tomorrow, December the 13th, with a festive craft stall. The fair runs between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m, so come along and buy some lovely goodies on offer.
Our last swimming is on Monday at Medina Leisure Centre between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
We still have available our Christmas knitted novelties. They are beautiful, and we are so grateful to all our wonderful members, volunteers and friends who have been so busy knitting. They are available to purchase from Gurnard Press, The Crown Shorewell, Tandem Tea Rooms, Bryston Village Stores and of course Millbrook House.
Our Christmas tree is once again on display in the Isle of Wight Pearl. This year our tree looks more magnificent with all our decorated spectacles on it. Please pop along and have a look and perhaps vote for your favourite tree.
Our Christmas cards are also available, selling fast this year, with several designs already being sold out. They are only £3.50 for packs of 10. So once again, please call the office if you wish to order.
We will be closing Millbrook on Friday the 19th of December at 1 p.m. and reopening on Monday the 5th of January at 9 a.m.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
This is Chris and Erin reading an article from the Island Echo. Whitelink celebrates silver win at the 2025 British Travel Awards. Whitelink is celebrating national recognition after being awarded silver in the Best Ferry Operator for routes from and to the UK ports category at the British Travel Awards 2025. The award places Whitelink among the top ferry operators in the country and reflects the company's continued commitment to delivering reliable, high-quality travel across the Solent. The British Travel Awards, BTA, remain one of the most respected customer-voted awards within the travel and tourism industry. Each year, the BTAs shine a spotlight on the very best operators, destinations and brands, highlighting those who are shaping the future of travel through exceptional service, innovation and customer experience. Crucially, the awards are decided entirely by public vote, making Whitelink Silver Win a direct endorsement from the customers who rely on its services. This year, Whitelink was shortlisted alongside some of the UK's largest and most well-known ferry operators, including Brittany Ferries, Stena Line and P&O's Ferries. In this highly competitive category, Whitelink secured the silver position, with Brittany Ferries taking gold. Whitelink C&O Katie Taylor says,
"This award is testament to the dedication of our colleagues across Whitelink. As the British Travel Awards are voted for by the public, we are absolutely thrilled to receive silver. It recognises the hard work of our teams who are committed to delivering the best possible service to our customers every day."
This is the fourth consecutive year Whitelink has finished in the top 2 at the British Travel Awards in this category, with the company winning gold in 2023. This consistency reflects Whitelink's long-term focus on improving customer experience, investing in its fleet and terminals, and ensuring smooth, reliable connections between the Isle of Wight and the mainland. Whitelink has also extended its congratulations to fellow ferry operators shortlisted for the prestigious award, and thanked the thousands of people who voted in the British Travel Awards this year. We're truly grateful to everyone who continues to use our services and took the time to give us their vote, said Katie. The support from our customers means so much to us, and we are committed to continuing to deliver the high standard they expect.
This is Noah reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio. Fire crew helped Newport Minster place star on 26-foot Christmas tree. From Isle of Wight Radio. Newport Minster has officially begun the Advent season with the installation of a towering 26-foot Christmas tree, but needed a little help to finish decorating it. The tree, funded by a raffle at the recent G4 concert and supplied by Shide Trees, was decorated by clergy and volunteers. However, the team soon discovered they didn't have a ladder tall enough to reach the top and place the star. Stephen Sutcliffe visited neighbouring Newport Fire Station to ask if they could lend a hand. The following evening, Red Watch arrived with specialist equipment and helped safely position the star at the tree's peak. Given the height of the tree, professional gear and trained personnel were required to complete the task safely. The fire crew volunteered their time and expertise to ensure the star shone from the very top. Reverend Steve Team Vicar thanked the firefighters for their support. Their generosity and willingness to help embody the true spirit of Christmas. The star now shines brightly for all to see, reminding us of hope, light and joy. The public is invited to visit the Minster and see the tree during services and events leading up to Christmas. Full details can be found on the Newport Webster Midnight.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Isle of Wight East MP brings leaders together to kick-start Sandown regeneration effort. Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson has brought together local leaders in Sandown to push for renewed focus on regenerating the town amid rising concerns about its future. The roundtable meeting held at the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary comes after months of worry that Sandown is being left behind when it comes to government investment. While Ryde secured a £20 million commitment from central government in 2023, the latest Pride in Place funding round delivered no support for island towns. Mr. Robertson says Sandown should be top of the list for national help due to its significant regeneration challenges. Those attending the meeting included Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones, Bay Business Association Chair Lawrence Bates, Sandown Mayor Alex Lightfoot, and Isle of Wight Councillor for Sandown South Ian Ward. The aim was to better coordinate efforts to champion Sandown at national, regional and local levels. Mr. Robertson said the issues facing the town are obvious, highlighting the condition of buildings, the high street, antisocial behaviour, poor educational outcomes, and a high concentration of HMOs. He also expressed concern that the Isle of Wight Council is too slow in its decision-making and does not see regeneration as its responsibility. He added that while the forthcoming Mayor for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight could help unlock funding, those plans have been delayed by government for at least 2 years. By working better together locally, I believe we can begin to reverse recent decline and create new opportunities for the people of Sandown, he said. Sandown councillor and community advocate Ian Boyd, representing the Common Space, welcomed the renewed political attention. Sandown has so much potential for a new direction and new investment, he said. Fixing Sandown will unblock wider island issues. Whatever its problems, Sandown matters to its community and to the island, and a better future is possible. The group intends to meet quarterly and is encouraging residents, businesses and community organisations to share their views.
This is Chris reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Whitelink warns government's new emissions scheme could increase pollution and hit island services. Whitelink has raised serious concerns over the government's decision to extend the UK Emissions Trading Scheme, ETS, to the maritime sector, warning it could have damaging and unintended consequences for ferry operators and island communities. The scheme, due to take effect in summer 2026, is expected to cost operators such as Whitelink up to £1 million a year. The company says the additional costs, combined with rising national insurance contributions and higher business rates, could delay key investment projects, including its planned next-generation hybrid ferry, scheduled for order in 2026. Under the ETS, operators must buy allowances for every tonne of CO2 emitted above a set threshold. Whitelink says it is committed to decarbonisation, but that progress is being hindered by a lack of electrical grid capacity at UK ports. A recent British Ports Association report found that 70% of ports are already at or near their maximum available power. The company warns the current design of the scheme could inadvertently encourage operators to run smaller ferries exempt from ETS charges, even though these produce higher emissions overall. rather than larger hybrid or electric vessels that carry heavier battery systems. Whitelink also criticised the government for not granting the Isle of Wight the same exemption given to Scottish Island services. Northern Ireland has additionally been awarded a 50% reduction in ETS surcharges to match EU rules, prompting questions over fairness and consistency. Whitelink CEO Katie Taylor said the policy risks undermining the UK's environmental aims. We've invested over £30 million in sustainable technology, yet we face an impossible challenge. There simply isn't the grid capacity to make our services greener. Instead of supporting long-term emissions reductions, the current approach penalises operators like us without offering solutions. The ETS may aim to cut emissions, but in practice it risks doing the opposite, and it will be the island communities who pay the price. Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson, Conservative, said he was highly disappointed the island has not been granted an exemption, adding, "Ferries are our island's only connection to the mainland and are the very definition of a lifeline service. It is incomprehensible that the government has not recognised this as they have for the Scottish Islands." Isle of Wight West MP Richard Quigley, Labour, echoed concerns over local grid limitations, saying, "While I support the government's ambitions for cleaner transport, without sufficient investment in grid capacity, this policy makes the low-carbon transition incredibly difficult. I welcome further consideration of how these measures can reflect the unique circumstances of our island community. The UK ETS maritime expansion is scheduled to come into force in 2026 unless revised by the government."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. NHS demands £48,000 healthcare contribution for new homes at Horsebridge Hill. In order for even more new homes to be built off Horsebridge Hill, a contribution of £48,158 would first need to be paid towards expanding primary care infrastructure, the NHS has said. Writing to County Hall, the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, that's known as ICB, said it would object to Captiva's Homes' latest plans for land at Acorn Farm if the funds were not secured. The developer's most recent Horsebridge Hill proposal includes a means of access, landscaping and ancillary infrastructure, and continues a partnership with housing association, the Sovereign Network Group. It extends from the Phase 1 site, currently under construction, according to E3S Consulting. NHS Hampshire and Isle of Wight's submission said the development directly affects the ability to provide required health services to residents of the estate and the community at large. Without the £48,158 payment, there would be a direct and adverse impact on the delivery of primary health care. The ICB says the nearest GP surgeries to the proposed homes are Cowes Medical Centre and Newport Health Centre's Carisbrooke and Dower House surgeries. These centres do not have the capacity to meet the increased demand arising from the development, its submission says. The only way to mitigate the impact is to increase the physical capacity of the existing surgeries. The ICB has carefully calculated the space needed to mitigate the impact drawing upon the document Health Contributions for GP Provision Technical Note for Developers. Without the contribution to increase the physical capacity, the proposed development will put too much strain on the said health infrastructure, putting people at risk. Waiting times would increase, and access to adequate health service would decline, resulting in poorer health outcomes and prolonged health problems. Such an outcome is not sustainable, as it will have a detrimental socio-economic impact. Captiva's plans include 20 houses classed as market housing, 9 as social, affordable or intermediate rent, and a further 3 designated as affordable home ownership, according to the developer's application form. Of the market housing, 9 are 2-bedroomed, another 9 have 3 bedrooms, and 2 have 4 bedrooms or more. 5 of the social, affordable or intermediate rent homes are 2-bedroomed, 3 have 3 bedrooms, and 1 is with 4 or more bedrooms. There is 1 affordable home ownership property with 2 bedrooms, and another 2 are 3-bedroomed. A draft Section 106 agreement published on the Isle of Wight Council's planning portal includes schedules on affordable housing, habitats, mitigation relating to the Solent Special Protection Areas, and biodiversity offsetting. Section 106 agreements are legal contracts between a developer and a local planning authority, entered to mitigate the effects of developments and make them acceptable in planning terms.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Councillors back stray dog plan, including fees, rehoming and welfare standards. A new policy to manage stray dogs on the Isle of Wight, aiming for public safety and animal welfare, has been agreed by county councillors. The Environment and Community Protection Committee, ECPC, last Thursday, the 4th of December, passed County Hall's Stray Dog Policy 2025 to 2028, which sets out how the council will meet its legal requirements on the matter. Provided by the Public Realm Officers team, the local authority's dog service has responsibilities which include responding to reports of stray dogs, trying to deal with loose strays where feasible, and collecting stray dogs during designated hours, according to an officer report. Natasha Dix, the Isle of Wight Council Service Director for Environment, Waste and Planning, said that between 2021 and 2023, 35 stray dogs were reported. However, she added that in the last 6 months, 10 strays were collected by officers. 6 were reunited with their owners, 3 were successfully rehomed, and 1 still remains in our care, awaiting rehoming, Miss Dix told the committee. They may not be high numbers, but it is important for each and every one of those animals to ensure it is being looked after, that their welfare is held as paramount, and that rehoming and reuniting with their owners is an absolute priority. The new policy says stray dogs are housed in contracted kennels that meet welfare standards under the Animal Welfare Act 2006 and the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, model licence conditions. The council ensures adequate food, shelter and emergency veterinary care is provided and compliance with animal welfare legislation and standards. Following the formal serving of a Section 149 notice to a dog's owner. After 7 days, unclaimed dogs are forfeited to the council and may be rehomed by direct adoption from the council. Ownership passed to an animal welfare charity for rehoming, sold at an auction, or euthanized only as a last resort and in accordance with welfare guidelines, legal status, or on the advice of a veterinarian. A Section 149 notice tells the owner of a stray dog that it has been seized and detained by a local authority officer. Fees charged to owners collecting stray dogs include a statutory stray dog fee at £25, an out-of-hours collection fee of £60, and a £60 per night kennelling fee. The policy also says members of the public should get in touch with the local police for advice if they think a stray dog is a prohibited type under the Dangerous Dogs Act, 1991. For example, a pit bull or an XL bully.
Good morning, it's Valerie Rutherford-Jackson and I'm your reader for today.
And on this side we have Tony the Brummie.
Its historic theatre is withdrawn from auction. A landmark theatre was withdrawn from auction on Wednesday, December the 10th, as the sale of the building was paused pending conclusion of negotiations. Ryde Theatre, one of Ireland's most well-known heritage buildings, was due to go under the hammer with a guide price of £650,000, but was pulled from the listing prior to the auction. Councillor Phil Jordan, leader of the council, previously confirmed he was working with the property owner and community interest community, the CIC, the Ryde Revival, to strike a deal. In a new statement, he said, "We are working very hard and directly with owners to protect the building and return it to community use. Discussions are ongoing at this moment in time, but crucial to the outcome of the project. As a matter of collaboration and good faith, the sale of the building has been paused, pending conclusions of negotiations." The leader of the council and representative for Ryde North West has previously expressed a wish to return the building to community use, calling it arguably the most important heritage building in Ryde. Last year, Ryde Revival was established with the Isle of Wight Festival boss John Giddings as its patron. The Ryde Town Hall was built in 1883 and closed in 2010 after it was sold by the Isle of Wight Council.
Closure of bank branch delayed by 8 months. The closure of the Lloyds branch in Ryde has been delayed until October 2026. The bank on Union Street in Ryde was slated to shut on January 21st, but a spokesperson has confirmed it will now close on October the 7th. The closure is part of a wider national move by the bank to shut branches, reflecting the shift to online services. The initial announcement for Lloyds Banking Group came in September. The company confirmed that all staff affected by the closures will be offered roles elsewhere in the business. Speaking to PA, our spokesman said the way people are banking has changed, with over 21 million customers choosing our apps to manage their money. We're providing more choice than ever before, bringing together the best in digital convenience with our people. Alongside our app, our customers can use any Lloyds, Halifax or Bank of Scotland branch, the post office or banking hubs for their everyday banking, and deposit cash at over 30,000 PayPoint locations. The closure marks the latest in a string of Lloyds withdrawals on the island, after the branch in Shanklin shut in 2022 and the bank's mobile branch serving Bembridge, Cowes, Freshwater and Sandown closed in 2023.
Resurfacing work starts by John Moreno. The island roads have begun resurfacing beleaguered Belgrave Road in Ventnor this week, a key milestone in efforts to restore full access following the dramatic rockfall there earlier this year. The resurfacing, which started on Tuesday and was expected to take 3 days, will cover the damaged section of the road, which has remained closed since hundreds of tons of rocks crashed down from the cliff face in March. Since the rockfall, residents and businesses in Ventnor have faced significant disruption, with access restricted and safety concerns raised about the risk of further falls. The resurfacing work is weather dependent, however, and will require pedestrian access through Belgrave Road to be suspended for the duration. Once complete, foot access will be reinstated, Island Roads has said. Vehicular access, however, will not return immediately. New parapets must first be installed to replace those destroyed in the collapse, together with final safety checks. A steel netting system similar to that already in use on Gills Cliff Road in Ventnor has been installed to provide long-term protection and stability. However, specialist rope access teams have inspected the cliff and worryingly concluded several unstable sections could yet collapse in the years to come. Island Roads has set a target date of December the 19th for the full reopening of Belgrave Road, provided no further complications arise. Project manager Nathaniel Saunders said, "As residents can see, we are making significant progress and we'd like to thank the local community for their support during work. The end of the project is now in sight, but there is still more important work to be done before we can safely restore full access." Work on Belgrave Road was held up while the Isle of Wight tried to resolve legal difficulties with the Rockface owner, Huge Rock, now settled. Belgrave Road has faced repeated challenges over the years due to its location within the Ventnor Undercliff landslide zone, one of the most unstable geological areas in the UK. The latest rockfall tore away railings and crushed the barriers, prompting emergency closures and major engineering response. In 2020, the Belgrave Road closed for almost 3 years after a retaining wall collapsed. Residents can be assured we are working hard to achieve the target opening date, Island Roads concluded.
Shipping containers wash up. A major clean-up operation has been underway after shipping containers fell from a vessel off the island and washed up on the mainland. A total of 16 containers went overboard near Bembridge at around 6 p.m. last Saturday, December the 6th. They fell from a cargo ship, Baltic Clipper, near the Nab Tower. At least 5 washed ashore at Selsey, West Sussex, the following day, December the 7th. A cordon was put in place at the scene by emergency services and people were told to avoid the area. The containers were carrying bananas, avocados and plantains, a Coast Guard spokesman said. Bananas could be seen washed up on the shoreline. HM Coast Guard said in a statement, 8 of the containers were reported as carrying bananas, 2 as carrying plantains, 1 as carrying avocados, and the remaining 5 were empty. Those who fail to declare items within 28 days are breaking the law and may have further action taken against them. Any sightings of the containers should be reported to the Coast Guard on 0344 382 0560.
A prisoner not given reasonable care. A 70-year-old child sex offender who died after contracting COVID-19 at the island's prison did not receive reasonable care, an official investigation has found. David Tilley, who had multiple chronic health conditions and mild dementia, died at St Mary's Hospital on September the 26th, 221. The Prisons and Probation Ombudsman has released its report into his death. The PPO report confirms that Tilley was convicted of sexual offences on April the 26th, 2018, and was sentenced to 14 years imprisonment. Tilley had groomed 5-year-old girl in Tiverton, Devon, and committed countless sexual assaults over the next decade. In April 2020, at Her Majesty's Prison, Isle of Wight, he was assessed as being at moderate risk of developing serious illness if he contracted COVID-19. However, the Ombudsman found no evidence that this risk assessment was explained to him or that any shielding options were discussed. The report found that Tilley declined 2 COVID vaccinations, and although he had signed refusal disclaimers, it was determined that staff had failed to record why he declined and whether the risks and consequences of refusing were properly explained to him. On September the 15th, 2021, Tilley reported symptoms he believed could be COVID, and a nurse assessed him, disagreed and did not arrange a test. And when the prison declared a COVID outbreak on September the 21st and began mass testing, Tilley was not included, despite his deteriorating condition. Tilley had 2 falls in the week before he was taken to hospital. The first happened in the early hours of September the 18th, when he collapsed beside his bed, and the second fall on September the 23rd left him seriously ill. He was taken to hospital, where he tested positive for COVID and moved to the critical care unit, and he died 3 days later. The prison watchdog listed failures in the assessment of his COVID systems, inadequate monitoring of head injuries suffered during his falls, poor management of his long-term health conditions, incomplete documentation of his vaccine refusal, and weaknesses in clinical record keeping. And although several issues were identified, no formal recommendations were made because national policies and practices have undergone significant changes since 2021. An inquest held on August the 11th, 25, concluded that Tilley died from natural causes with COVID as the medical cause of his death.
Collapsing historic villa is a ticking time bomb. It's a ticking time bomb. That's the chilling warning from pensioner Frank Thomas, who lives just yards from a Grade 2 listing building that collapsed almost a year ago. Ravenscourt, the once grand Italianate hunting lodge-style villa, built between 1840 and 1850, partially crumbled on January the 8th, sending masonry crashing down and blocking a vital route to the Ravens, a block of 15 chalets. Ravenscourt was once a spectacular landmark overlooking the sea, but today is a ruin. Frank says the building is still falling down, chunks are still coming off it. It's going to go, it's a matter of when, not if. When that wall comes down, if somebody is walking on the footpath beside it, they're goners, and anyone else passing in the street below. When it comes down, the force of it will shoot off bricks. If they hit our wall, it's coming straight through. Frank and wife Jan believe life at the Ravens has become a daily gamble. You hear a noise and think, here we go, he said. We're like prisoners. You couldn't get a fire engine or an ambulance up here. What if something major happened? Frank said Royal Mail refused to deliver, citing safety fears, and residents must retrieve their post from Ventnor's sorting office. Some, including a disabled neighbour and another recovering from a hip operation, struggle to use the steep alternative lane, the only access to the Ravens. The couple's plea is stark. We would like the council to knock it down. If they do that and leave a footprint, we can have our road back. Ravenscourt owner Alan Philpott, who is believed to be living in Portugal's Algarve, has not been seen since 2021, Frank said, and attempts to contact him have failed so far. An Isle of Wight council spokesman confirmed a building inspector visited Ravenscourt on December the 5th amid public concerns. It was concluded the condition has worsened, but the protective cordon remains in place and provides sufficient public protection, they said. The landowner had already taken action to make the building safe, and given the worsening situation, the council continues to engage with the landowner over their responsibility to a safe outcome that provides full and safe access to residents. But residents demand more immediate action. Frank said, "The building is a danger to us and other people. Something should be done about it, and quickly." County Press contacted Mr. Philpott but received no response at the time of going to press.
Overturned car closes the main road. An overturned car led to the closure of the main Shanklin to Ventnor Road on Wednesday, December the 10th. The County Press understands that one vehicle was involved in the crash, a yellow Fiat Panda, which suffered front-end damage. The crash happened on Bonchurch Road between Cowleys Hill and Leeson Road. A Bartlett service station crew recovered the vehicle and the road was cleared of debris before reopening. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary said, "We were called at 8:04 a.m. to a report of a road traffic collision on Cowleys Hill. A man suffered minor injuries."
Chair of Community Council survives no confidence vote. The chair of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, that's NCCC, survived a no confidence vote at a tense meeting on Monday. 5 NCCC members voted to express no confidence in Councillor Vix Lothian, while 8 others voted against the motion. Submitted by Councillors Louise Rippon and Ray Harrington Vale, it followed criticisms aired by Councillor Rippon after Clerk Joshua Tomlinson resigned last month. But at Monday's meeting, Councillor Rippon was in turn accused of sending harassing emails by Councillor Tamsin Verinder, who told attendees there was a witch hunt against the chair with no evidence of Councillor Lothian's wrongdoing. Councillor Rippon said she did not have enough time or breath to address every point that was directed at her, but flagged a bullying, toxic culture. Mr. Tomlinson's resignation letter was previously leaked to the press and cited breaches of trust, confidence and fair procedure. Pan and Barton County Councillor Jeff Brodie, who previously served on the Community Council, supported a no confidence vote. What I ask you to consider is to whether any confidence you may have in the chair is shared by the loyal staff of NCCC, all of whom I have known for many years. Councillor Verinder spoke of increasing attacks on Councillor Lothian, which she said had become harassment, and mentioned an offensive social media post. She said Councillor Lothian had attempted to deal with the situation in the best way that she can, making herself available to answer questions by phone at nearly all times of day. Councillor Lothian said if we had an investigation and it had found that I'd done something wrong, then I could completely understand what's going on here. I've respected confidentiality all the way along. I've thanked staff for the things when they've gone above and beyond. I've brought in presents for staff to thank staff publicly. I've sent messages to thank staff. That's an accusation which doesn't reflect at all in my experience. This is a bolt out of the blue from what I'm hearing now. I still remain baffled about the whole thing. Councillor Rippon resigned at the end of the meeting after the failed no confidence vote, saying, "I've used my role and this platform to highlight serious concerns about staff treatment and wider cultural issues within the council. The meeting, intended to give the members all the time to discuss leadership failings, instead became a platform for an uninformed sermon-like speech that targeted me personally."
Jewellers to close their doors after 146 years by John Moreno. After 146 years of adding sparkle of life's big moments, one of the island's most treasured jewellers is preparing to say goodbye. T.M. Taylor and Sons, a true diamond in the island's retail crown, will close its shops in Cowes and Newport next spring. Founded in 1879 by Thomas Taylor in Cowes High Street, the family-run business has weathered changing fashions and more polishing than you could shake a bracelet at. The Newport branch at 110 St James's Street opened in 1975 and has been under the steady hand of Michael Taylor since 1976. Now, after nearly half a century at the helm, Michael says it's time to enjoy a well-earned retirement. "After 50 years, I thought it was about time to retire. I'll be 75 next year," he said with a smile. Michael, whose father ran the business before him, will be joined in retirement by two long-serving gems, Wendy Smart, who joined in 1987, and Audrey Farrar, who has been part of the team even longer. Together they've helped generations find that perfect ring and probably heard more romantic stories than a Mills and Boons fan could ever read. Michael, who trained as a jeweller retailer via the National Association of Goldsmiths, has to have a sound knowledge of all types of items sold in a jeweller's shop. "The nature of this business is that you work until you drop. I decided I'm not doing that," joked Michael. The cow shop run by Michael's cousin, Catherine Booker, for around 40 years will also close at the same time, with both stores expected to shut on or around March the 31st. Michael's brother David retired 3 years ago, closing another tailor's outfit in St James Street. Looking ahead, Michael, a former Newport Minster church warden of 14 years, will do running for pleasure and to keep in trim, and with his wife Lynette see more of their son's family in the Wirral. "When you run a business, you're tied to it. Now we'll have time to do things that we've missed," he said.
Inquest opens into woman's fall from a cliff top. The inquest into the death of a 59-year-old woman who fell from a Sandown seafront cliff opened last Friday, December the 5th. Lavinia Partridge, who was born in Kensington and Chelsea but had been living in Sandown, died on November the 20th. Police were called shortly after 9 o'clock in the morning to reports that a woman had jumped from a cliff on the promenade near Finn's Beach Cafe. The incident prompted a large-scale emergency service response, and parts of the promenade and the cliff top above at Battery Gardens were cordoned off. First responders attempted CPR, but Ms. Partridge could not be saved, and was pronounced dead at the scene. A post-mortem was carried out by Adnan al-Badri, who gave the provisional cause of death as multiple injuries. The coroner, Caroline Summeray, offered her condolences to Ms. Partridge's family and sent a provisional full inquest date for June the 4th, 2026. If you need help, the Samaritans can be contacted 24/7 on 116 123 or at samaritans.org.
Plan to ease inquest backlog. A hefty 61-point recovery plan for the Islands Under Fire Coroner's Service has been endorsed by the County Hall. The Environment and Community Protection Committee, the ECPC, voted for the live document, continually developed and delivered amid ongoing criticism at last Thursday's evening's meeting on December the 4th. A committee report prepared prior to the meeting said the waiting time for inquests is reported as being the worst in England and Wales. However, Laura Gordian, Director of Adult Social Care and Housing Needs at the Isle of Wight Council, told the ECPC that the number of cases open for more than 12 months have seen a 50% reduction as of December the 4th. She said the Isle of Wight coroner, Caroline Summeray, has confirmed that for 2025, 197 cases are still outstanding for longer than 12 months. A total of 236 inquests have been concluded so far this year, which the coroner described as a record number for the Isle of Wight. Only 38 inquests were concluded by the coroner last year, with an average wait time of 76 weeks, more than double the national average according to the ECPC report. In October, it emerged that more than 400 families waited over a year to find out how their loved ones had died. This is the second highest number in the UK, according to the Chief Coroner's Annual Report for 24. The Service Recovery Plan lists 61 actions, with those completed including ensuring bereaved families' guidance is added to the Isle of Wight Council's website, prioritising staff learning and development, reviewing officer presence in court and agreeing the complaints process with Mrs. Summeray. However, ones marked in red, not started, include developing a bereaved families charter and exploring procurement options for pathology. Another action, scanning completed inquest files to a digital case management and workflow system, had a March the 31st, 25 target date. The independent councillor for Newchurch, Haven Street and Ashy, Claire Musdell, told the committee, "I dare to question the length of time 7 years ago that an inquest was taking and got a very direct phone call from a certain person within this service and had it made very clear to me that I was never to question it again. 7 years on, we've got a report in front of us." Councillor Ed Blake, the Conservative Vice Chair of the ECPC, said, "If all the steps are taken in this recovery plan, I'm sure the service could return to what we would deem as satisfactory. Currently, I would be correct in saying that the island's residents deem it unsatisfactory. The ECPC reports highlights that very clearly."
Sad farewell to Xiao. Fans mourn the death of a red panda. A top animal attraction and its visitors are mourning the loss of a much-loved female red panda. Xiao died at Amazon World Zoo Park, Newchurch, last Friday, December the 5th. The red panda, who was 12 and a half, was one of the most popular animals at the attraction. Our hearts are heavy as we mourn the loss of Xiao, Amazon World said in a statement on social media. Zhao arrived in May 2014 alongside her sister Mel Xiang, and the pair lived happily together until Mel left in 2020 to make way for a breeding program. A male red panda named Bert joined Zhao, and although the pair produced cubs, none survived beyond a month. When Bert died suddenly in 2023, a new male, Flint, arrived as part of the International Red Panda Stud Book program. This summer brought joy when Zhao and Flint produced 2 cute female cubs in June. However, Zhao struggled to rear them, which led keepers to step in when they were 2 months old to co-parent. This teamwork was a huge success, an Amazon World spokesman explained. The pups thrived thanks to extra milk feeds during the day, while remaining in their nest box under Zhao's watchful and careful eye overnight. Red pandas are classified as endangered, with fewer than 10,000 left in the wild. In a touching tribute, Amazon World has named the cubs Xiao Mei, remaining Little Beauty, and Zhao Boa, meaning Little Treasure, and will be known as Mai and Bo. We will continue to help them in the coming weeks and months, said Amazon staff, adding that staff are closely monitoring the cubs and Flint as they adjust to their loss. Xiao was described as a beautiful ambassador for captive red pandas who stole our hearts from the very moment she arrived in 2014. Her passing leaves a huge hole in our hearts. On Facebook, many shared their thoughts for Xiao. Cassie Hornsby said, "Such heartbreaking news. Thoughts are with all the staff who cared for her, loving the twins' names. Such a wonderful tribute to their beautiful mom. We'll miss seeing her on our days out at Amazon World." While Simon Tart added, "Such a beautiful red panda. We so loved to see on our visits."
Police officers investigated after a woman's death. 2 police officers have been served with gross misconduct notices as part of an investigation into contact that police had with a woman before her death. The development follows an inquiry made by the county press after Patricia Rosie Butcher's inquest was formally opened last Friday, December the 5th. Miss Butcher, 23, from Ryde, died at property on Elm Grove in Cowes in the early hours of August the 20th. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary confirmed at the time of her death that a referral had been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct, the IOPC, due to prior contact with Miss Butcher before her death. The IOPC spokesperson has told the county press that notices have been served in relation to the officers' decision-making around Miss Butcher's medical needs when they attended an address on August the 19th after police received concern for welfare reports. Miss Butcher died in the early hours of the following day. The spokesperson said the investigation began after the mandatory conduct referral from the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary, adding that the serving of notices does not necessarily mean the disciplinary proceedings will follow. The IOPC investigation remains ongoing, and a decision on whether any officers should face disciplinary action will be made once it concludes.
Political leaders speak out over mayoral delays. Isle of Wight political leaders and the UK's largest trades union have spoken out after next year's Hampshire and Solent mayoral election were delayed. The Conservatives, Liberal Democrats, Empowering Islanders, Reform UK and Unison issued statements after it was revealed their 4 areas due to elect newly empowered mayors in May may not vote on them until May 2028. Councillor Andrew Garrett, leader of the Liberal Democrat group at the County Hall, said, "Fully unlocking the benefits of devolution depends on having a democratically elected mayor, so this delay is immensely disappointing. It feels like central government didn't properly think through what it was demanding of local councils, both for devolution and LGR." Councillor Chris Jarman, the Empowering Islanders group leader, called for collective action to secure the Isle of Wight's local council elections next year. He said, in a move to prevent expected seismic change of local councils in 2026, it appears the Labour government are poised to cancel Isle of Wight 2026 local elections. This follows the outcry following the cancellation of our local 2025 elections. Councillor Bill Nye, head of the Reform UK group, said the devolution plan was supposed to bring more power closer to local residents and away from Westminster. Labour seemed determined to undermine the idea that the people can have a greater say in the decisions that impact them. I am concerned that the next step will be cancelling the council elections next May. We are travelling down a very slippery and dangerous path. Maggie Ferncombe, Unison South East Regional Secretary, said, "The delay will no doubt be disappointing for many people, but it gives an opportunity to get LGR and devolution right, so residents receive the services they need. This has to be a good thing. But reorganisation mustn't become a distraction from the real challenges facing councils. They include chronic misunderfunding, the rising demand and the mounting pressure on dedicated staff who keep these services running."
MPs to stand down from councillor roles. Both the Isle of Wight's MPs have confirmed their intention to step down from their councillor roles at County Hall. The Isle of Wight East Conservative MP, Joe Robertson, and the Labour MP for the Isle of Wight West, Richard Quigley, issued statements after it emerged the mayoral elections were set to be delayed. Mr Robertson, who represents Bembridge on the Isle of Wight Council, said he believed the government is also threatening to cancel council elections again. He told the LDRS, "I asked the Minister, Miata Van Bulla MP, to confirm that she will not cancel our council elections next May because her plans for a mayor and LGR are not complete. She did not give that confirmation." Mr Robertson said he would not serve as a councillor beyond May next year, whatever the government decides to do. And asked what he planned to step down as a councillor, Mr Quigley, councillor for Cowes North, said, "At the moment, local elections are due to take place in May 26. Responding to the mayoral elections delay, he said, "Whilst it is disappointing for anything to be delayed, sometimes it's necessary to get the best possible outcome. I have spoken with the Minister to ask that the proposed increases in funding are made as soon as possible so that the island can make investment plans with partners now rather than later. The proposed Hampshire and Solent Combined County Authority would receive £44.6 million a year."
A farm director has had 2 horses taken away from him, including one he claimed was worth £250,000, after a court ruled they were suffering under his care. Trevor John Rand, 61, of Mews Lane in Newport, has appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates several times since July in relation to Reggie and Dave, 2 horses seized from Little Fairley Farm under the Animal Welfare Act 2006. At a hearing on August the 28th, the court was told Dave, an elderly horse now in his mid-20s, was discovered during a police visit on October the 30th last year in very poor body condition. Sarah Whedon, representing the RSPCA, said Dave was infested with lice, soiled with faeces and urine, and suffering a range of health problems associated with malnourishment and lack of routine dental care. Ms. Whedon told the court Mr. Rand had previously signed a document stating he was not Dave's owner and that the RSPCA could not find an alternative owner. Mr. Rand, representing himself, denied responsibility and claimed the horse had been dumped on him, describing Dave as old and ancient. District Judge David Robinson granted an application for Dave to be permanently signed over to the RSPCA. Given his age and condition, Ms. Whedon said Dave was unlikely to be rehomed as he did not meet the charity's criteria. The fate of the second horse, Reggie, was decided last week. Mr. Rand had earlier claimed Reggie was worth £250,000 and insisted in court he had raised him from a foal, describing himself as his mum and his dad. This was despite Ms. Whedon previously suggesting that Mr. Rand was not Reggie's legal owner. At an application hearing on December 3rd, the RSPCA was awarded possession of Reggie. The court ordered the animal to be disposed of other than by way of sale. Both seizures were brought under the provisions of the Animal Welfare Act, allowing the RSPCA to apply for the permanent possession of animals removed due to welfare concessions. The rulings meant Mr. Rand will not regain either horse, although he maintains that Dave never belonged to him.
Globe makers are up for a national award. An Island globe making company has been shortlisted for a national award. Lander and May in Cowes is in contention for the accolade of the best UK artisan business. The business, owned by Chris and Laura Adams, hand makes globes from paper mache and plaster before hand applying paper map gauze. Lander and May is one of the few businesses in the world left using this method in the world. Laura and Chris have been making globes since 2011, and their work feature on display at the V&A Museum in London. Laura said, "It's a real privilege for our company to sit alongside such a talented shortlist of amazing crafters and entrepreneurs in a prestigious setting like this, and for our products to be recognised and appreciated by the Country Living team, who really support the handmade industry. It's wonderful to now be part of this handmade family of artisans. We've met some really interesting makers with shared circumstance and sensibilities, and we all feel connected through our craft." The award was organised by the Country Living magazine, with Dame Emma Bridgewater as a patron.
The jury examining the death of Paulette Crooks returned their conclusion on Tuesday, December the 9th. Paulette died as a result of pneumonia, the direct cause of which was Legionella pneumophila infection, which was acquired from a hot tub at Dairyman's Cottage, the official record of the inquest reads. The jury's findings were: the hot tub's maintenance record keeping was inconsistent and incomplete. Bromine levels on the morning of February the 8th were at the minimum threshold requiring shutdown and cleaning. No management level reporting mechanism existed for unsafe bromine readings. The family notified Tapnell Farm on February the 11th that 7 members had become unwell. Environmental Health was not notified until February 19th, by which time Tapnell Farm had several opportunities to drain, clean and disinfect the tub, diminishing the evidential value of later testing. Mrs. Crook's fatal pneumonia was caused by Legionella pneumophilia infection acquired from the hot tub.
In days gone by, 75 years ago in December 1950, Island Road and rail services were disrupted after a blizzard left snowdrifts of up to 8 feet deep across much of the island. The snowstorm, which lasted for 3 hours, was the heaviest in living memory. After a lapse of 12 years, the Gilton Market was revived in Newport. The championship award went to the beast owned by Mr. F. Aylett of Rowlands Farm in Haven Street. 50 years ago, in December 1975, the Liberal Island MP Stephen Ross had to take the agonising decision to vote in favour of the introduction of the death penalty for acts of terrorism resulting in death. Mr. Ross said that his vote had been influenced by what he believed the majority of his constituents would want. The Yarmouth Pier was listed by the Department of the Environment as a structure of architectural and historical interest.
125 years ago, in December 1900, a serious fire occurred at Mr. H. W. Halling's draper's shop in Newport, Central Pyle Street. A roll of material ignited when it fell onto a gas burner. Despite nearby shopkeepers bringing buckets of water, it was necessary for Mr. W. Guy, who lived opposite, to run to the Guildhall and ring the fire bell. A vintner man was welcomed back from serving in the Boer War with a smoking concert at Ventnor Cricket Club. Trooper Pike gave an interesting speech about some of his experiences at the front and told how he was wounded. 100 years ago, in December 1925, Jasmine Cottage, a thatched cottage in Ningwood, was destroyed by fire. It was believed a beam in the chimney caught alight. The county press printed The Housewife's Guide to Making a Christmas Pudding. It said, "The ideal Christmas pudding is what every housewife aspires to produce, and every year she endeavours to excel all her previous efforts." A recipe was included.
Do you still make the effort to send out your Christmas cards? Greetings from Toyland. Postcard, there's pictures here. My love of Christmas cards goes back to childhood, when our family seemed to send and receive dozens each year. Once we had amassed more than enough cards to fill the windowsills and every other available standing surface, my sister and I would be tasked with arranging the cards into suitably balanced rows. My mum was very fussy in those days, which we would then attach with a tiny plastic peg to a piece of traditional string. Then, with a drawing pin, my dad would suspend the card garlands from the wooden ceiling so that they cascaded down the wall. When we were sent out to post our cards any time in December, the village postbox was usually so full that the envelopes were spilling out at lunchtime. You'd have to wait until early the next day, after it had been emptied, to post what was usually a stack of envelopes, some of which were only travelling a few miles away to their destination. These days you can hear a Christmas card clanking on the bottom of the last remaining postbox as you drop it in, due to it very often being one of just a handful winging its way through the postal service. Increasingly, friends and family will say that they are giving to charity instead of sending cards. I know with the increase in postage charges, plus the cost of living going up at an alarming rate, it can be an added expense to keep up the card-giving traditions. But to me, cards are in that bracket of celebratory gestures that are still relatively affordable compared to the joy that they can bring. And if you want to boost good causes in the process, you can always buy charity Christmas cards. They are a great example of paper ephemera, items that have very little monetary value but great sentimental worth, and are a wonderful prompt for memories. You can either keep them for prosperity, as I have some of the more special ones I've received from dear family and friends over the years, or you can recycle them. So Mum and I will soon be getting our address books out, as we have for more than half a century, and will write our Christmas cards and send them by post. Sadly, many names of those who are no longer with us had to be crossed off our lists over the years. But for the people who are left, receiving a card offers valuable contact with the past, a means of catching up on the news, and a way to show that they are not forgotten. And as my mum says, these days people just wish each other a Merry Christmas on Facebook. But I don't have that. It's something that is done hastily and soon forgotten. But it takes time and effort to write a card. I still like to send and receive cards because it's really a nice way to keep in touch with people, even if it is only once a year.
So, do you still make the effort? I know I do, said Emma. To me, it's all part and parcel of the festivities. So, just like that, the festive season is upon us again. I say it every year, but this time Christmas really has crept up on me. I'm no more ready for it than I ever am. That is apart from having stockpiled Christmas cards over the past few months. Yes, I'm one of these traditionalists who still likes to send and receive a physical card. There's nothing like hearing the letterbox jangle and a thud as the envelope hits the doormat. It's simply not the same seeing an electronic version drop into your inbox with animated snowmen leaping about all over the screen. In this largely digital age, there is something really special about holding a tangible item in your hand, taking time to appreciate the picture and read the words inside. You can pick up a card again and again and display it on your mantel shelf throughout the Yuletide period as a physical reminder of the true sentiment behind Christmas, giving and sharing with a happy heart. Sending greeting cards has become an important part of our country's festive celebrations, although the first known physical Christmas card is believed to have been sent in 1611 by a German physician, Michael Mayer, to the King James I of England. For many of the Christmas traditions we celebrate today, such as trees, crackers and cards, we have the Victorians to thank. According to the British Postal Museum, the first commercially produced Christmas card was created in 1843 by Sir Henry Cole, a civil servant who also helped set up the postal service in the UK. Before 1840, Britain's postal system was complex and costly. This all changed with the introduction of the penny post in 1840, via which a letter or card was paid for in advance with a postage stamp that just cost a penny. That was known as a penny black. Advances in commercial printing in the 1860s meant that by the 1870s sending Christmas cards was available to the masses and became firmly established as a British Christmas tradition. I must admit that I still favour what I consider to be the traditional themes for my cards, but it wasn't until late Victorian times that robins and snow scenes, now synonymous with a British Christmas, became popular subjects. It's rather ironic that we still have to receive a snowy scene greetings card, given that we get so little of the stuff these days. I fear we will eventually become like Australia, where Christmas is a summer holiday and you're far more likely to receive an image of Santa on a surfboard than a sleigh. A view from Richard Quigley, MP for Isle of Wight West. Late November to early December marks several important awareness days on domestic abuse and violence against women and girls, including White Ribbon Day and the 16 Days of Action Against Domestic Violence. As a male MP, I made it my mission to have honest conversations both with the women in my life and with the wider community about domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. I was absolutely shocked by the sheer volume of casework my team received from victims of domestic abuse. In response, I requested a briefing from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary. They kindly arranged a meeting at Newport Police Station for my team and I to understand how we can best support victims. While I was impressed by the response of our island police to tackle this issue, I was disappointed to learn that domestic abuse on the island has risen by 25%. That's why I was pleased to recently bring forward 2 parliamentary debates. The first focused on protecting children from domestic abuse nationwide, and the second addressed government support for women and girls on the Isle of Wight. Both debates aimed to highlight gaps in provision. The first debate sought to address the fact that while children are now recognised as victims in their own right of domestic abuse, further provision is needed to ensure that they can access the appropriate support that they are entitled to. The second debate demonstrated how inadequate cross-Solent transport further entrenches inequalities already faced by women on the mainland, limiting access to the healthcare, reducing job opportunities, and leaving victims of domestic abuse with fewer options to seek safety and support. Alarmingly, the absence of a Sexual Assault Referral Centre, SARC, on the island forces survivors to travel to Portsmouth for forensic evidence collection and vital emotional support, an unacceptable reality that illustrates how living here places victims at an immediate disadvantage. I've heard many people say, "What does that have to do with the island?" The reality is that from my conversations with survivors, it's an issue that should concern us all, no matter where we are. And the government aren't just listening, they've taken action. The Isle of Wight will have its own Pathfinder Court by early 2026. Pathfinder Courts are a reformed approach to family court proceedings designed with victims in mind and to centering focus on the needs of children caught up in domestic abuse. From my conversations with victims, a recurring concern is the need to feel heard by the system. That's why I believe this initiative represents an important first step. But it's up to us all, especially men, to challenge violence and domestic abuse when we see it.
Ginny Ore, the publicity manager for the Apollo Theatre Players, recipients of the King's Award for Voluntary Service. The King's Award for Voluntary Services, or CAVS, that's KAVS, is an award equivalent to the MBE for individuals. It is given to voluntary groups across the UK who make a significant contribution to their community. Every year the Lord Lieutenant calls for nominations for the award, which is made by the King. Nominators must ensure that the groups they propose are truly outstanding and make a big difference to their local community, that volunteers rather than paid staff are in the driving seat and that they have the highest standards in everything they do. This year, the Apollo Theatre Players were nominated for their services to the arts on the island, along with 2 other Isle of Wight organisations, the Brading Community Partnership and the West Wight Dementia Choir. More than 50 years ago, the Players' founders, John and Pat Hancock, identified a disused Methodist chapel in Newport, and through their energy and commitment managed to raise the funds necessary to buy it, at a cost of £7,007 in 1971. And during the subsequent decades, though much hard labour, volunteers converted it and turned it into a 130-seat theatre, producing 7 plays a year, and raising sufficient money year on year, not only to continue doing so, but also to improve the facilities. They managed to purchase the house next door and convert the ground floor into a bar, and continue to build their impressive store of costumes and props. They are members of the Little Theatre Group of Great Britain, which exists to represent the views of amateur theatres across the UK, who own or lease their own premises. The Isle of Wight has expensive and sometimes infrequent links to the mainland. The Players therefore aim to produce plays of various genres that patrons would usually have to travel to the mainland to see, while at the same time using a pool of actors which is limited to the island, so they have to ensure that plays are challenging and appealing to them as well. They have found a mix of old favourites coupled with new plays works very well. The Players pride themselves on encouraging people from all backgrounds to take part in their productions. As an arts organisation, they are strongly committed to the principles of equality and diversity, both on stage and off, and believe that diversity is the cornerstone of a theatre which can reach out to all corners of the island and bring new ideas and perspectives to the way they produce and interpret productions. The 220 members do everything necessary to run the theatre. They act in the plays, run a youth theatre, staff the bar and the box office, build the sets, maintain and develop the Grade 2 listed building, carry out marketing and publicity, and manage the finances. Thus, not only do the population of the islands benefit from what they do, but the members themselves form a close and committed group. And they do all these things because of their commitment to bringing a high standard of theatrical and other artistic activities to an area far away from the cultural centres of England. The impact of the theatre on the Isle of Wight cultural life is significant, not only in relation to the standards of their own theatrical productions, but also because they host visiting companies and activities such as the Isle of Wight Jazz Festival, as well as being a venue for screening the National Theatre Live and Royal Opera House productions. The Players' current production, Iron, by Rona Munro, runs until tomorrow, Saturday. The Apollo Theatre Players are delighted and honoured to be recipients of the King's Award for the voluntary services. And the editor's note: it seems that gremlins have been up to their naughty tricks again in Vectis View. Last week they managed to sneak in and swap the text, leaving us with the right photo but the wrong words. Our apologies to Ginny for the mix-up. The gremlin responsible, we know who it is, don't we, Sandy? It is very sorry, and everything should be in order this week.
Here we have the column Mickey's Musings while Holmesy's on his holidays. My late father had a line he adapted from Groucho Marx. I've had a perfectly wonderful evening, but this wasn't it. 2. I've had a great day, but this wasn't it. After last Thursday's budget and the farmers' protests that followed, it's hard to think of a phrase that sums up the national mood more accurately. If the government thought rural Britain would quietly accept what was served up, they badly misjudge the people who keep this country fed. Let's not sugarcoat this. The budget didn't simply overlook farmers, it put a target on their backs, wrapped in talk of fairness and responsible taxation. The inheritance tax proposals landed like a shovel to the ribs of communities already working on the margins. As David Gunn, an arable farmer from near Sevenoaks, said, inheritance tax is going to cripple the farmers, the small family farmers. From Westminster, farmland looks like an attractive real estate. For those who own and work it, it's an exhausting, precarious way of life that doesn't allow for sick days, bank holidays, or political spin. You can't harvest talking points. You can't feed livestock with ministerial sound bites. I watched the London footage with equal parts admiration and frustration. Admiration because those tractors, trailers and battered 4x4s represented something noble. Families pushing back against policies drafted by people who have never knelt in a field at 5 o'clock in February to help deliver a breeched lamb. Frustration because the police response, banning tractors, creating barricades, arresting peaceful demonstrators, sent a clear message. We hear you, but we'd prefer not to. Let's be honest, tractors are not stealth weapons. They crawl, they clatter, they clog up the traffic at the speed of an unmotivated tortoise. But the real issue isn't tractors. It's the sheer tone deafness of the moment. Farmers weren't protesting for fun or headlines. They weren't gluing themselves to buildings or throwing paint at statues. They were simply asking their government not to financially devastate their families, and yet they were treated as if they were a nuisance, an obstruction to business as usual. When arrests began, something didn't sit right. These weren't agitators out to cause mayhem. These were people who got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, fed livestock before sunrise, and drove hundreds of miles to remind the government that food doesn't grow on supermarket shelves. Treat ordinary citizens as nuisances for asking to be heard, and resentment will take root. Make no mistake, if these inheritance changes go through unamended, many small farms will not survive the next generation. They will be carved up, sold off, or swallowed by corporations who view agriculture as another portfolio category. And once that happens, you don't get those farms or the communities around them back. What frustrates me most, speaking not just as a solicitor but as someone who listens to people with real problems, is how preventable this is. If ministers spent even a single day shadowing a farming family, not for a photo op, but genuinely, they'd understand how absurd their assumptions are. No farmer looks at their barn and sees wealth. They see repairs they can't afford, a roof battered by storms, and a building one emergency away from collapse. And yet, there it is on paper, valued as if it were a penthouse. What matters now is whether the government listens, not nods politely, but actually listens, revises, negotiates, compromises. Of course, the budget wasn't wall-to-wall bad news, but it certainly wasn't the great day the government hoped we'd applaud. For rural communities watching the tax announcements roll in, it felt more like being handed the receipt after a meal you didn't order. As Farmer Groucho might have said, it was a great budget, but this wasn't it.
Wednesday the 17th of December, there's a carol service at 7 p.m. at Carisbrooke Priory, 39 Whitcomb Road, Newport. If you need to contact them, it's admin@carisbrooke.org.uk. Phone number 523354. Also, the Bembridge Singers Christmas Concert at 7:30 p.m. That's on the 17th of December at 7:30 p.m. A concert of Christmas songs, anthems and readings by the Bembridge Singers, the Holy Trinity Church Road, Bembridge Singers at gmail.com. Also, the Abbey Brass in concert at 7:30 p.m. The Abbey Brass present an evening of Christmas music, Binstead Methodist Church, 17 Arnold Road, Binstead. The band manager at Abbey Brass Isle of Wight in capitals IOW.com. Phone number 07863390683. That's the Abbey Brass in concert at Binstead. And lastly, Friday the 19th at Freshwater Parish Council late night shopping at 4 p.m. Freshwater Parish Council invite you to 2 evenings of community gathering and late night shopping with carols, mince pies, mulled wine and 30 plus local shops and local business in Avenue Road, Freshwater. Contact Clark at freshwater-parish.gov.uk. Telephone number 752000.
On Saturday the 27th of December, Beauty and the Beast, grown-ups only panto, 7 o'clock in the evening, £24. This will be on from the 27th to the 30th of December. Have you ever watched a pantomime and wondered what mischief the cast would get up to if there weren't any children in the audience? Well, now's your chance to find out at Medina Leisure Centre. Telephone number 823884. On Saturday, the 20th of December, the Christmas Bells at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A festive live performance in Key Arts Cafe on 15 C Street. And one more item, Beauty and the Beast at 2 o'clock in the afternoon between the 20th and the 27th of December. The cost is £17.50. It's a tale as old as pantomime, and thanks to the team behind the hugely successful leisure pantomimes for the past 4 years, Beauty and the Beast will be brought to life in spellbinding style at Leisure Medina Theatre. Once again, telephone number 823884.
Christmas Saved from Adrian Pinnock in Ventnor. After St Catherine's Church, Ventnor found itself without a musician on Christmas Day to play either the organ or piano, and it would have to cancel the Christmas Day service. An SOS call, or SAM, which is send a musician, went out via social media. The great community responded as always, and the day has been saved. The Reverend Nicola Pinnock Deacon said, "Someone has come forward from our wonderful community who not only plays the piano but the organ also. Prayer, faith and social media works." St. Catherine's Church is so thankful to everyone who responded, which now means that if they ever find themselves in this position again, they now have some musicians to call upon.
We have a letter from Name and Address Supplied, headed Christmas Frustration. I've long been frustrated by how early Christmas seems to be promoted in the shops. This year, I observed Tesco putting out Christmas biscuits on August 27th. In my opinion, this is much too early, and it also has a knock-on effect that the shops may not have thought of. That is, it pushes Halloween out of the way. As Halloween is my favourite of all the yearly celebrations, I would like to see something done about this. I would suggest that the Isle of Wight could become the Halloween capital of the UK. We already have Black Gang and Robin Hill putting on extensive Halloween attractions. I would like to see the island develop this into an island-wide promotion. Perhaps it could be called the Isle of Fright for the month of October. Many small businesses struggle as the summer season finishes, and this would be a great way to bring a lot of tourists to the island for October, and would have the added benefit of pushing the start of Christmas celebrations until at least mid-November, or ideally into December, where they belong. Thank you for reading my letter.
Strikes don't heal patients. Dear Editor, resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, are due to strike again next week here on the island and across the country. This comes at a time when we urgently need more doctors, with GPs and hospital posts able to absorb more than 2,000 extra jobs. The government has offered 2,000 new training places, but not include pay increases for this year, nor does it cave into the BMA union's demand for a 26% salary rise over the next few years. This is on top of the 28.9% increase they have already received since 23. What we don't need is strikes, which means fewer people getting treatment. Patients are already waiting too long, and disruption only makes matters worse, particularly during this flu epidemic. It should be noted that most medics on the island are not seeking to strike. The focus should be on finding solutions that bring more doctors into the system, not fewer patients through the door. If the BMA turns this offer down, then all their talk of striking for the benefit of patients and the NHS will be shown up for exactly what it is, simply holding the government to ransom for more money. And this is the end today, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas from Valerie.
And from Tony. Have a lovely time.
The BBC In Touch programme follows. There is no scaffolding news this week.
Hello.
It is the Christmas season. We put up Christmas trees.
Later, I'll be speaking to a blind classical singer and psychotherapist about her new Christmas single, that you're hearing, and she'll also be sharing some practical tips for blind and partially sighted people who might be struggling to find their festive cheer. First, though, they say love is blind, don't they? Well, a new dating show from ITV seems to be putting a new spin on that old phrase. Blind Matchmakers encourages contestants to put the non-visual first when getting to know a new partner. Now, we have dating shows that try to take on this idea already. Take Love is Blind as an example. But Blind Matchmakers has done things differently because the matchmakers themselves are visually impaired. And they pair daters together based mainly on personality, but also their own instinct, drawing from their experiences of dating with a visual impairment. Well, joining me are two of the matchmakers, social media content creator and disability advocate Claire Sisk, and actor and drag performer Jake Sawyers. Hello to you both.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Well, the plan was to have all three of you matchmakers here, but Joy Addo, our third matchmaker, is, at the time of this recording, having a baby, which I have to say is the best reason for someone not being available to do this programme that I have ever heard. So, Claire, let's start with you. Where did the idea for this show come from?
So one of the producers, Jess, she's had this idea for, I would say, about 3 years, because it was about 3 years ago that I met her. And it kind of grew from putting blind people together to let's have blind people present in the show.
So it initially started off as an idea where it's going to be about blind people dating.
Yeah, so matchmaking blind people, I guess a similar concept to the Undateables, but everyone was going to be blind and they were going to be matched with somebody. And then when it came to the actual production, it was, okay, let's have the blind matchmakers instead.
Yeah, because as you said, touching on the Undateables, we do have shows already like the Undateables that represent disability. So what do you think was the significance of having matchmakers who are blind?
I think, like you say, that so many shows want to try and replicate it because they don't want it to be based on looks. And I think that was Jess's whole idea was, well, what if you couldn't see who you're being matched with? What if you have to go by what they smell like, what they sound like, what they taste like? Then how would that work? And that's kind of like where it's grown. And then to have the blind and visually impaired matchmakers as your professional love experts, because we've all found love with our disabilities. Obviously, we can't see what either party looks like, the datees or the daters. So we're purely going based on what they're telling us that they want and the vibe the sort of the data is giving as to whether we put them together.
And both having blind and partially sighted people as the matchmakers, you know, kind of leading and guiding the daters on their journey for love, if you will. But also there were some visually impaired daters, you know, participants in the show as well. So what do you think can be gained from that dynamic, you know, having visually impaired people on both sides of the coin?
I think it's great for representation. You know, representation is everything. It shows people what is actually possible. You know, growing up, I wasn't blind growing up, but I never saw anyone who looked blind on telly, was in magazines or even walking a runway. So when I lost my sight, I didn't even know that those dreams were possible. And when you don't see yourself anywhere, you can't believe that you can belong anywhere. So I think having us as the blind matchmakers, but also having blind contestants, it just broadens that whole sort of spectrum of disabilities. I think we're so used to seeing a lot of other disabilities on mainstream media, but it's very rare that you'll see a blind person.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think having, you know, more than one blind person as well, you know, having just one sometimes is a huge ask for representation. And I feel like that box is sometimes ticked when they've got just one blind person.
Yeah.
But I think having that, like, sort of plethora of experiences, because I work with a lot of blind people. I work for a charity based in Cardiff, and even though we're all visually impaired, even people with the same conditions just have totally different life experience. And I think seeing those like intersect and those interactions, like, you know, if you watch the show, myself, Claire and Joy are so different to Kitty, and I think that's just a really unique perspective. Like, often it's blind people talking to non-blind people, but I think having those conversations between blind people is something that we don't really see and wasn't really the aim of the show, but I think is something that did come out of it.
Yeah, and Kitty being one of the visually impaired daters on the show. I guess as well, you could argue that, you know, when it comes to TV representation of blind people, there can sometimes be this element of sort of pity. And so from what I took away from it, it was the idea of having people on both sides. It's not just blind people needing help to find a romantic relationship. It's also putting forward, you know, the three of you who are in long-term successful relationships, and you're almost demonstrating that, you know, hey, this is possible for us, possible for everybody.
Yeah, and I think just almost going against that as well, of just putting it there and not even mentioning it, because I know, you know, from the cut of the show, which was only around 25 minutes, and we filmed for an entire day, and you probably agree with me, Claire, we watched it and we thought, oh, they cut that bit out, we had this great one-liner. But then I did watch it again and I thought, you know, we don't really need to go into full detail about how we're visually impaired and our history. Like, I feel like these days it's just enough to know we are visually impaired and we're out here doing it. And you said about pity and how that's often capitalised on, but this was just an opportunity for me as a host to host some like late night trashy TV in the best sort of ways.
Well, I mean, on that, Jake, I mean, do you think a show like this can really change people's attitudes, or, you know, is it all just a bit of fun?
I think ultimately it's all a bit of fun, but what I've learned through performing in drag as my alter ego Venetia Blind is people often like to see things being done and they don't like to hear about it. I used to run visual awareness training and I spent so much of my time, especially in my early 20s when I should have been out living my life, I spent so much time talking about how I'm visually impaired and talking about how we can do everything that I wasn't actually out there doing it. So I think ultimately this show is a lot of fun. But then I think, like feeding vegetables to children, you sort of sneak in that education. It's doing that as well. So people are watching it, they're having fun, they're having a laugh, but then they'll finish it. And then 2 days later, something will hit them in their brain of, oh, yeah, they were visually impaired and they were just doing it. I didn't realise it at the time, maybe, but I definitely learned something. I think the education and the perceptions being changed is sort of a byproduct of it. People want to have fun first. People want to be entertained. I know I do.
And some of the contestants had very big personalities, let's just say. You kind of had your work cut out for you a little bit. How did you go about matching them?
It was
absolutely wild, wasn't it, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pilot show, so should it go down the route that it becomes an actual show and you're going to have people who are really going to take it seriously, I'm not saying that none of these people did, and people who want to find love, I feel that you're just going to get a completely different lineup of people who aren't necessarily just there for their 5 minutes of fame.
Yeah, it was a really interesting one because we all sort of know how reality TV goes. They film so much, but you can only actually put so much out, and there's sort of goals to meet and story beats and all of this stuff. So we did have a bit of input, but I think if it was to go to full series, we would definitely want sort of more input on matching those actual datas up.
So what do you hope that people will take away from watching Blind Matchmakers?
I hope people are, first of all, entertained and are left wanting more. I think I just want people to see, you know, that we can have fun and be silly and controversial, because I think one thing I learned from this entire process, especially from all of the huge personalities, I sort of realised that I do hold back sometimes as a host. I try to be so correct in what I say, and sometimes you just got to throw caution to the wind and be authentically yourself and speak your mind.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as well, it's knowing that blindness, it's not like the headline, it's just one part of who we are. I want people to see blind dating, you know, they're going to see us dating, laughing, flirting, being awkward, spitting food out, being confident, being messy and being brilliant, and basically just doing all the same things that everyone else does.
Well, Jake Sawyers, Claire Sisk, thank you very much indeed. And you can find Blind Matchmakers on ITVX and YouTube. Now, Christmas mode has been officially activated, hasn't it? But it can present some specific challenges if you're visually impaired, with so much emphasis on the visual side of Christmas, overcrowded and busy spaces, Christmas markets making your usual route potentially unfamiliar, for example. But if you're also dealing with something heavier, perhaps a new diagnosis or a sudden change to your vision, it can feel difficult to get into the festive spirit. So when classical singer and psychotherapist Victoria Oruwari got in touch, wanting to have a conversation about Christmas and mental health, we thought it was a good idea. She's also here to talk about her new Christmas song, which we'll get onto in a moment. Victoria, first of all, I've mentioned a few of the possibilities there, but what do you think are some of the specific challenges that some visually impaired people might face at this time of year?
Isolation and loneliness could be one of the biggest obstacles that blind people could face around Christmas. I think it's because there is a lot that goes on around Christmas that involves going out somewhere and socializing. And if your usual route is disrupted, that could be difficult. It also involves socializing with so many people, and sometimes blind people work better in smaller gatherings than they do in larger gatherings, especially if the gatherings are really noisy. There are also logistics, like if transport gets disrupted, for instance, where a lot of people tend to travel with pre-planned arrangements. So sometimes being unable to make those last-minute changes could make things a bit difficult. Blind people who have been newly diagnosed with visual impairment really specifically struggle, because what do you send someone at Christmas? You send them a Christmas card. And if people around them are not aware of a different medium, and then opening that means, well, they can't see anything on it. And they probably won't be as comfortable about asking for help as somebody else who is a seasoned blind person to get the card read to them. And that could bring some really strong emotions. But it's also a time where all services that you're used to having close down. Like if you used to go to a day center, if you used to go somewhere for some activities, everything shuts down. So I thought, well, why not have a chat and see how we can come up with tips on how to help people in this situation?
So what would be your tips for people who might be struggling with these things we've been talking about?
I would say to any blind person dealing with isolation during this period to choose connection. Think of a friend you could reach out to and arrange to have a chat with. Check in with different people once a day and just say, can you please give me a call? I could do with someone to talk to. When you address loneliness before it sets in and becomes a big issue, it really helps make a huge difference. And then establish a routine. When do I want to be quiet and be by myself? When do I want company? If you want company and you're not able to find that sort of company, listen to a playlist, audiobook, or some podcasts. But I think establishing a routine that involves movement, music, silence, reflection, it gives you a rhythm.
I mean, to that point that you made there, where it's sort of important to have those conversations with people around you, because I have some good usable vision in my right eye, but on a bad day, for example, when I notice that the sight in that eye is, noticeably worse than even the day before, it almost sort of instills this fear because of how precious the vision in my one eye is. And, I notice that I tend to internalize that fear in a way, because in my personal life, at least, and, like a lot of visually impaired people that we hear from on this programme, we're told that people often haven't really interacted with anyone who's visually impaired. So when you notice that deterioration, you tend to think to yourself, people around me won't understand, or perhaps you don't necessarily want to worry anybody else. How do you think that people might be able to deal with that kind of thing?
I would say have faith in humanity. I find from personal experience, as I'm totally blind, that people generally do want to help, but they don't know how. So maybe a small thing like, my eyes don't feel very happy today, so if you could offer me a bit more support when we go for a walk, I would really appreciate it. I can't see beyond maybe 2 feet in front of me, so please let me know if there's something in front of me. But ask for what you need, because genuinely people do want to help. I actually find that people find it easier to invite me around to places if I am very vocal and open about what sort of help I need, because then it stops them from imagining something even bigger.
Do you know of any organisations or services that visually impaired people might be able to go to if they are struggling with their mental health?
RNIB do have a counselling service, and they can be reached by contacting 0303 123 9999 and then asked to be put through to the wellbeing team. That's the blind specific one that I know off the top of my head. But I also know that several boroughs within London have Blind Aid. They tend to help blind people by finding befrienders. And some people I know actually have some friends who come and walk with them once or twice a week, and they set themselves some challenges like, let's see how many bridges in London we can walk across in a year. They do things like that. And it can be fun. And then in all cases, if you're struggling in the middle of the night, the Samaritans is always there, and they can be reached on 116 123.
Well, thank you for that. And as I've mentioned, you are also here to talk about your debut Christmas single, Merry Christmas from Afar. The song has a specific message, I think, which is linked to what we've already been speaking about.
Yes. Merry Christmas from Afar is a song that I wrote Actually, I started writing it during lockdown, so it's been through several stages. And it was a Christmas where I was with my partner and we were just at home. And it was really sad because we both had family members far away that we couldn't, see, we couldn't spend time with. So I sat by the piano and I started to play these chords, and there were just 2 chords I was playing. And gradually it grew, and I felt able to share this song this year because our family have experienced a huge loss. My partner's mother died and she was so full of life. And this year for our family, Christmas is not going to be the same. And we're just taking things one day at a time and hoping that we can get to that place where we can all kind of be happy and joyful about Christmas again. So I thought that this song would be relevant to other people who might be experiencing something similar for several reasons, not being able to spend Christmas with someone that they love.
This is sort of newish territory for you as a singer because you're primarily a classical soprano, aren't you? So why did you decide to write this song in this particular style?
Thank you for asking that question. When I sat by the piano and I started to play those chords, that was the voice that came to my mind. And yes, I am primarily a classical singer, but I do sing other styles. And I felt like I wanted to write a song that came straight from a place of vulnerability. And I wanted a song that everybody else could sing and feel able to reach all the notes, because in that moment, that's how I felt. It's like a warm hug to anybody who is feeling like they're struggling a lot this Christmas and they just want someone to sit with them in companionate silence or just hold their hand. And that's what this song is doing.
Well, let's have you singing us out. So for now, from me, Beth Hemmings, it's goodbye. Victoria Orowari, would you like to introduce your new song?
Here is Merry Christmas from Afar. I hope it meets you where you are. And I'm hoping that the season where you are is what you need.